Hey, it's Jack Kelly, CEO, founder, WeCruitr. And today, I want to help you out with something. Interviewing is a lot like dating. You go out, you go on a date, maybe you go on a second one, and you're always wondering, does he or she like me? Where is this going? And you just struggle to find the signs so you kind of know what's happening. Same thing with interviewing. You go through the interview process. You think you're doing great. You think you're doing awesome. But then you're not sure. So what I'd like to do is be your wingman and give you some kind of insider from a 20 plus year recruiter, how to know if the company likes you, wants you, or they don't really care. so this way, I can kind of be the translator, in terms of what they say and what they mean. So just because they say something doesn't really mean what they say and what you think they're saying. All right. Now that sounds like all mumbo jumbo, right? So let me get to a couple examples. So all right, you meet, you have a great first interview. You think you nailed it, you like them, they seem to like what you said a couple of really smart things, you said something a little funny, they laughed at it, all good. Then at the end, now, if this was 7 months ago, this would be in person, but now it's pretty much over Zoom or on a phone call, maybe once in a blue moon in person. So it gets a little bit more awkward. So let's presume Zoom kind of call or an online call, because that's kind of the standard, what's happening now. So at the end of this interview that you thought went pretty well, they say, well, Jack, it was a pleasure meeting with you. Thank you for coming. And you're like, okay, thanks. And you're like, all right, what does that mean? I don't get that. So let me translate. When they say that, couple things. One is like, that's don't call us, we'll call you kind of thing. Two could be, hey, it's the early stages of interviewing and they really don't know. Maybe you're great, maybe you're not so great. We're not sure, so we're going to be very non-committal. You could always respond to that saying, I really enjoyed our conversation. I believe my background, my experience lends itself to the role. I seem to get along with everybody I've spoken with and be very interested. What are your thoughts? Would you like to continue, the interview process? If you kind of try to pull it out from them to see what happens. If you don't hear anything back from that, it's awkward because sometimes the people are interviewing. The first interview might be the HR person who they're not going to make the decision. It's the hiring manager, or the hiring manager is not sure, so he demurs. So even if you ask, you may not hear an answer, but you might hear something like, we're in the early stages of interviewing. We've met a couple of people, have some more lined up, and we're still going through a lot of resumes. When you hear that, you're like, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear that I was awesome, that you love me, that I was the best person for the job. But when they say that, here's what they mean. Now, sometimes they're being upfront that they do have other people they're going to meet with. They have a lot of resumes and they really want to go through it. Another could be, we like you, Jack, but we don't love you, so let's see, let's go through some of the other, interviews, let's see more resumes, and then we'll get back to you. So that's kind of what they're doing. They're playing it. They don't want to blow you off because they feel, okay, he's okay, but we're saying we have some people who potentially be better, but you just wait around for us. So once again, okay, but that's not great. Here's what you want to hear though. If they say something like, Jack, it was great meeting you. You definitely have the background experience. The next step would be, you're going to meet with Susan from blah, 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 and then you're going to meet with Jane from blah, blah, blah. You're going to meet John from this area. And, there'll be about 4 or 5 interviews going over about a month or two. And then we're hoping to wrap it up, by the new year. Then you're like, all right, yeah, I get it. Doesn't mean you have the job, but at least by them saying, what the agenda is, naming the people. And it's even better if they give you their titles along so you can go home and check them out on LinkedIn. So this way they're saying, hey, we kind of like you. This is a little better than the other two. So this shows we kind of like you. We're interested. We're so interested that we already want to schedule with 2 or 3 more people. And they're kind of giving you the timeline so that you can manage your time. So those are good buy signs. That's good. Speaking of buy signs, here's another buy sign that you want in an interview. If the interviewer does a lot of the talking. If they're doing a lot of the talking, but then kind of turns into more selling you on it. Not like a high-pitched sell, but you know what? Hey, I didn't know if you know this. Right now it might not be useful, but we have a gym in the building and you get a free membership. Also, we have a great health plan. And I notice you are commuting from such and such. There's a stop right in front of, the building, so it's great for you to come in here. Also, I know you work at, XYZ company. We've had a few people who came from XYZ company too, and they've really excelled. So then that's another thing that's good, because that shows that instead of grilling you and asking you and interrogating you and asking you all the questions, they're the one talking. They're the one selling you on it. So that's a good sign. When they're doing that, you're going to roll with it. You want to go. You don't want to disrupt the flow, because that means they like you. They want you. The more they talk. And here's kind of a psychology hack. The more they talk, the more they're invested in you. Because think about it. The more they talk and talk and talk, they feel, well, I must really like this guy Jack because I'm kind of talking and selling and doing. So they almost convince themselves they like you. So you want to let that go. You know what I mean? Let it go. So you don't have to feel like you have to interrupt, because you're going to think, well, I should say something. I should do something. Enjoy it. Take it in. Then when there's a chance for you to say something, then you could let them know, hey, I appreciate it. It sounds like you're very interested in me as a candidate, and that's fantastic, because I find this to be a great opportunity, and I'm interested as well. So now they feel better. And it's important you say that, because once you say that, then they realize, okay, I like Jack, he likes me, this can move forward. Because it's embarrassing for a hiring manager or HR person or someone in the interview chain to really go out on a limb and say, we really like that guy Jack, we want to hire him, we want to bring him aboard, and then use their political capital to get an offer out, and it turns out Jack's not interested. And they have egg on their face. So they want to know. It's almost like when you're back in middle school and, you ask your friend, hey, Johnny, can you see if Cindy likes me? Can you find out for me? And then if you find out Cindy likes you, then you can say, hey, Cindy, would you like to go to the movies with me? My parents will drive us, we'll get popcorn. And then, because that she probably would say yes, because you had your buddy kind of find out for you. That's the same kind of thing. You let them know, hey, if they ask you out, you're going to say yes. And don't underestimate that. That's important. Because when you're in these big bureaucracies and these big corporations, they want to get stuff done. And if they say, hey, let's hire someone, and it doesn't work, it just reflects poorly. And they're going to feel very uncomfortable in the pressure for the next go round. One of the things you have to be aware of, if there's a communication breakdown, maybe you went on one interview, 2 interviews, there's some emails going back and forth, maybe some texts, but then all of a sudden, code silence. Not a good sign. Now, doesn't mean that it's all over, but if you're kind of a mental calculator, you want to put it in, not hearing back, it's starting to turn against me. You want to maybe send another follow-up email, maybe a LinkedIn connection request, maybe a text if that's how you're going back and forth. You don't want to be too forward with text unless they kind of initiate it. If you don't hear it, that's probably not a good sign. Another not good sign is this. You're excited about the role. You're like, hey, what kind of responsibilities will I have? And then they kind of grunt out a couple of answers. And they're like, huh. And they're like, in terms of career trajectory, what can I expect? And they give maybe a 1 or 2 word answer. And then you notice the whole time when you're asking questions, they're just sparingly giving you information. They're giving you a little blurb here, a little half sentence there. That's a giveaway. So it could be a couple of things, to be fair. One could be, and this is kind of a quirk in the whole interview situation, For some reason, companies just feel if you're a manager, you could go out there and you can interview people. They very rarely train. They very rarely have you role play. So they say, okay, you go out there and just interview Jack. But some people could be good at it because they're naturally comfortable doing it. Some people are mediocre. Some people are terrible. So it could be the people giving you the one-word answers maybe just don't feel comfortable with the whole environment of interviewing. Or it could be they already made up their mind that they're not interested, so they just don't want to take up your time. Sometimes they do that. They just feel, all right, I don't want to lead Jack on, so I'm just going to be very short, very curt. And they probably realize I know I'm being rude, but I don't want to give a false signal that he's interested, and then he starts sending a thank you note and follow up and all this. So they feel, all right, maybe Jack will get the message. I'm just not that into him, and he's going to move on. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. If that happens, it's worth following up. And then if you don't hear back, then you can be like, okay, I kind of felt in the interview you really weren't digging me. Now I know for sure because you just ghosted me. So, all right, that answers it. A couple of other things that you probably don't want to hear or see when they say something. First you don't want to see is that you look on Indeed or some other job board and you see the same job that you're interviewing reposted. That is not good. Now, it could be reposted just because they have a contract with the job board and they want to have it up. Or it could be they met you and met some other people, but no one really clicked. So they're saying, okay, let's cast a wide net again and see what happens. Is it a deal killer? Not absolutely, but is it something you should be aware of? Yeah. Same thing that happens if you get out of a couple of interviews, you're feeling psyched, you're feeling pumped, it's good. And then all of a sudden you get a call from a recruiter or two, and they say, hey, Jack, I got this awesome job. It's with blah, blah, blah company, and here's what, and then you start thinking, oh, this is where I just interviewed, this sucks. And then you're like, well, thanks, I heard about it. And then the recruiter is bummed because then they realize, hey, the recruiter thinks, oh, I thought I had an exclusive on it. So they're bummed, and you're bummed because you're like, all right, this recruiter is pitching me on it. That means I was okay, but not great, and they're looking for other people. And if you get another recruiter calling, because that happens, I'm sure it happened to you guys, happens, then all right, they're just fishing for everybody. So whatever. If I really love the job, I'm going to stay invested in it, but if not, I get it. It's not going to happen. All right. This is another one that you just don't want to hear. Hey, it was really nice meeting you, Jack. You have great experience, maybe a little too much for this role. However, we have some new roles coming up, and we'll keep you in mind. It's like, thank you that you're keeping me in mind, but I want this job. This is what I'm going for, not some maybe, perhaps job that will or won't materialize. So when you hear that, you don't know. Maybe they're blowing you off, or maybe some people are sincere. Believe it or not, in this world, some people are actually nice. And they may feel, hey, Jack, you're really good, but I think you're too good for this job, and it probably wouldn't be fair to you to take it. You deserve to get a better, role. And believe it or not, it's hard to believe in today's date where everybody's at each other's throats that, sometimes people are nice and considerate. Now, the funny part is, if you really want the job, you're like, no, don't be nice and considerate. I want this job. And you might even want to say that. You might want to say, hey, I really appreciate that you think highly of me, so much so that you're keeping in mind for a more senior role, and that's fantastic. However, I am really interested in this job. And if you like me and interested, I will still continue if that's okay. And then you see how it plays out. Chances are they're not going to give you an answer on the fly because they probably might not be sure about the other job. They may be really not sure about you. And a lot of times, especially lately, it's easier for companies just to say, hey, let me think about it and get back to you. So really what it is, interviewing is so much like dating. It's trying to figure out the signs, the body language, what they really mean. So when you go in, you want to have your antenna up. You want to be optimistic, but you want to be realistic. So you can kind of gauge what they mean. So whenever a company, the HR, the talent acquisition person, the hiring managers, other people involved in it, when they're talking a lot, when they're selling you on it, when you ask questions and they're giving you lots of answers and they give you a lot of color, even more so than you're looking for, when there's communication back and forth, through emails, through text, through phone calls. Those are all good. When you get these wishy-washy kind of, hey, we'll get back to you, we're looking at other people, thanks for coming in, it was nice meeting you, not so good. When you hear very specific information, when they start giving you the names of different people, their titles, and then also when they start giving you a background, when they say, hey, Juan, you're going to meet with him. He's great. He's a big Giants fan, loves the Giants. So when you meet with him, talk with him about the Giants. He had a similar background to you. He started out like you, but now he's 3 levels up. So there's so the way he progressed, you could progress too. So when they start kind of painting that picture, then that's a really positive sign as well. So what you want to do is you want to hear these sell signs where they like you, they're talking, they're pitching you on the role, they're telling you about the company, they're answering your questions, they're talking about the people with whom you're going to work with, they kind of talk about the career track, they talk about like things that are going on behind the scenes. When it used to be when you go to the office, then the best thing is when they say, hey Jack, I'd like to show you around. And then they walk you through the floor and say, hey, this would be your office. And you're like, this is good. This is good. All right, cool. And that's so-and-so, and you'd be working with her about this stuff, and that's so-and-so, and you're going to be working about this. And you're like, that's a great sign. With Zoom and calls, you don't see that anymore, so that's a little tougher, so you will. So I hope this helps. I can't give you all the answers because just like with dating, it's just fluid. It's hard sometimes to really pin down, but the best you can hope for is try to read the signs so you have a better sense, hey, is this really working in my favor or they're just not interested in me? So hope this helps. As always, if you ever need me, you want to run something by me, my number is 212-997-3166. You can find me at jack@WeCruitr.com. See me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook. So hopefully this was a little helpful. And maybe you were going through this and always wondering what they meant. And now you're like, that's what they meant. I didn't realize that. So hopefully it did discourage you, but at least it opens your eyes and helps give you some color and confirming what you may or may not thought was going on in the interview. So good luck. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.